Remember to like and subscribe. Welcome back to Sound to Swish, where we take all your sources and we break them down into easily digestible chunks of knowledge. Today, we are diving into the world of supplemental training for basketball players. We're going to explore the science behind maximizing performance and minimizing injuries, those dreaded injuries. We've got some incredible research from a top basketball performance coach. And let me tell you, some of these stats are, well, pretty mind-blowing. We're going to be talking about injury rates, vulnerable areas for players, and how strength training is about way more than just bulking up. Okay, let's unpack this a little. The research we're diving into highlights some pretty sobering statistics about basketball injuries. Did you know that there are about 1.94 injuries per 1,000 athletes? And that number jumps up to 3.27 per 1,000 during competition. Ouch. That's a lot of players hitting the sidelines.
That's right. And if we take a closer look at the data, we see some clear patterns emerging. The ankle and foot are the most vulnerable areas, accounting for almost 40% of all injuries. Then we've got the knee at 14.7%, and the head, face, and neck region at 13.6%.
Wow, those numbers for ankle and foot injuries are surprisingly high. It makes you wonder why those areas are so susceptible to injury in basketball.
Well, it all comes down to the biomechanics of the game. Basketball is incredibly dynamic, demanding explosive movements like jumping, landing, pivoting, and quick changes in direction. All of these movements put tremendous stress on the lower extremities, especially those ankles and feet.
So it's not just the speed, but the combination of impact and those rapid changes in direction. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that the study found significant differences in injury patterns between male and female players. For example, female players are more prone to knee injuries, while males are statistically more likely to suffer fractures.
Wow, I never realized there were such distinct gender differences when it comes to basketball injuries. Why do you think that is?
Well, there are a few factors that could be contributing to this trend. Physiological and anatomical differences between men and women, including hormonal variations, bone structure, and ligament strength, could all play a role. Understanding these gender-specific risks allows us to create training programs that are tailored to address those vulnerabilities and hopefully reduce those numbers.
That's really fascinating. It highlights the importance of taking a nuanced approach to training based on individual needs and potential risks. Speaking of training, one of the biggest takeaways from this research is the emphasis on strength training. But I think a lot of people, especially young athletes, have misconceptions about lifting weights. They worry it will stunt their growth or mess with their shot. What would you say to those concerns?
Those are common myths. But let's set the record straight. There's no scientific evidence to support the idea that lifting weights stunts growth. When done correctly and safely, strength training can actually be beneficial for bone density and overall musculoskeletal health, which is particularly important during those crucial growth years. And the idea that it messes up your shot, that's just not true.
So how does strength training actually translate to better performance on the court?
Think of strength as the foundation for everything else. You know, your power, your speed, your agility, and even your ability to resist injuries. It's all interconnected. A stronger player can generate more force when they jump, leading to a higher vertical leap for rebounds and blocks. They'll have quicker first steps, make more explosive cuts, and even deliver more powerful passes. It's about harnessing that strength to become a more dominant player.
So it's not just about bulking up, it's about developing that functional strength. That directly impacts every aspect of the game. And this is where plyometrics come in, right? I've always been fascinated by plyometric exercises, but I've also heard they can be risky if not done properly.
You're right to raise that concern. Plyometrics are all about maximizing explosiveness, boosting your jump height, improving your quickness, and really elevating your athleticism. But you're also right that they do require a solid base of strength and impeccable technique to avoid injuries. Imagine you're going for a rebound. Plyometric box jumps train the same explosive leg muscles needed to outjump your opponent and grab that ball.
That makes perfect sense. You wouldn't want to jump into plyometrics without that foundation.
Exactly. Progression is key in plyometric training. Just like building a house. You start with those basic exercises and gradually increase the intensity and complexity. As the athlete gets stronger and more proficient, we need to make sure we're building on a strong foundation.
Okay, so what are some examples of plyometric exercises that translate directly to basketball skills?
There are so many great ones. Box jumps, as we discussed, are incredible for improving your vertical leap, which is vital for those show-stopping dunks and rebounds. Lateral bounds help with your side-to-side quickness, which is crucial for those defensive slides. Depth jumps develop reactive strength, which comes into play when you land after a rebound, or block a shot. And then you've got medicine ball throws, which enhance upper body power for more explosive passes. Each of these exercises targets specific muscle groups and movements that are directly applicable to the game.
It sounds like plyometrics really add that extra edge to a player's game. But let's not forget speed and agility. It's not just about jumping high, it's about maneuvering quickly and efficiently. Around the court, how does training address that aspect?
You're absolutely right. Speed, agility, and acceleration are key to dominating the court. And training these elements isn't just about running fast. It's about optimizing your stride length, increasing your stride frequency, and mastering the art of changing direction quickly and efficiently, just like a point guard weaving through defenders.
That makes sense. Are there any specific drills or techniques that can help players develop those? Lightning-fast reflexes and agility.
Absolutely. One drill I love is the bungee cord speed dribble. It involves attaching a resistance band to a player's waist and having them dribble while sprinting, focusing on explosiveness, and resisting the pull of that band. It's incredible for building speed and power. Another great drill is the lane Z drill, where players sprint in a zigzag pattern, simulating the quick changes of direction needed to navigate through defenders.
It sounds intense, but incredibly effective. Now, what about endurance? Basketball is a fast-paced game with a lot of running up and down the court. How does endurance training fit into the picture?
Endurance is definitely important, but it's about finding the right balance. While basketball involves bursts of high-intensity activity, relying too heavily on long, slow aerobic training can actually be counterproductive. Overdoing aerobic training can hinder the development of power, which is essential for those explosive movements we've been talking about.
Oh, that's interesting. So what's the best approach to endurance training for basketball players?
The key is to focus on shorter, high-intensity drills that mimic the demands of a game. Think sprints, shuttle runs, and drills that involve quick bursts of energy followed by brief recovery periods. This type of training helps players develop that anaerobic endurance needed to sustain their power and explosiveness throughout a game.
So it's all about aligning your training with the specific energy systems that are most crucial for basketball. That makes a lot of sense. We've talked about strength, plyometrics, speed, agility, and endurance. Is there anything else that plays a crucial role in training for peak performance?
You've hit all the major points, but there's one more critical element we need to discuss. Periodization. It's like the conductor of the training orchestra, ensuring everything works together harmoniously.
Periodization. Tell me more about that.
It's all about creating a structured training plan. That varies the intensity and volume of your workouts throughout the year. It's like a roadmap that guides athletes through different phases of training, each with specific goals and focuses.
Why is that important? Why not just train at the same intensity all year round?
Great question. Periodization is designed to prevent overtraining, reduce the risk of injury, and optimize performance for key competitions. For example, there's the transition phase, which is all about active recovery and allowing the body to recuperate after a long season. Then there's the off-season, where the focus shifts to building a solid foundation of strength and power. As the preseason approaches, the intensity ramps up, with more emphasis on sport-specific drills and conditioning. Finally, during the in-season, the goal is to maintain those hard-earned gains and fine-tune performance for games.
So it's like a cycle that repeats, but each phase has a specific purpose and builds upon the previous one. What about rest and recovery? Where do those fit in?
Rest and recovery are absolutely essential. They're not just about preventing burnout, but are crucial for allowing the body to adapt to training and get stronger. A well-designed periodization plan will incorporate rest days and even weeks where the training volume is significantly reduced. Think of it like sharpening a knife before a big task. You wouldn't want to use a dull knife. And you wouldn't want athletes going into a crucial game feeling drained and overworked.
That's a great analogy. It all makes so much sense. But how can athletes and coaches track their progress and ensure they're on the right track? How do they know if their training is actually translating into real results on the court?
That's where performance testing comes in.
What kind of performance tests are we talking about?
There's a whole range of tests that can assess different aspects of athleticism. We have vertical jump tests to measure explosiveness, speed tests evaluate acceleration and top speed, agility tests assess the ability to change direction quickly, like during those intense defensive maneuvers, and strength tests determine how much force an athlete can generate, which translates to those powerful rebounds and shots.
It sounds like these tests provide incredibly valuable data that can be used to fine-tune those training plans. and make sure everything is aligned with the player's goals.
Absolutely. Performance testing helps identify areas where an athlete excels and areas that need improvement. It allows coaches to personalize those training plans and ensure that each player is working towards their full potential.
It takes the guesswork out of training and allows for a more targeted and effective approach. This has been such an eye-opening discussion. It's incredible how much goes into crafting a successful training program for basketball players, going way beyond just running drills on the court.
It's definitely a complex and evolving field. I'm glad we had the opportunity to delve into some of those complexities today.
Me too. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to make sure our listeners are walking away with the key takeaways. We've learned that strength training isn't about bulking up. It's the bedrock for preventing those common basketball injuries and boosting performance in all aspects of the game. We've also seen that training needs to be tailored to the specific demands of basketball, focusing on explosive movements, quickness, and that all-important balance of endurance. And of course, we can't forget periodization, the mastermind behind organizing training throughout the year to optimize performance and prevent overtraining.
Those are all excellent points. And let's not forget about the power of performance testing. It's like having a personalized roadmap that guides you toward reaching your full athletic potential.
Absolutely. It's all about working smarter, not just harder, and using data to make informed decisions about your training. But before we move on to part 2 of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question. How can you apply these insights to your own training, whether you're on the court or cheering from the sidelines? Think about it. We'll delve deeper into this in part 2, where we'll explore even more strategies for maximizing performance and preventing those injuries on the court. But for now, we encourage you to explore the source material further and continue your own deep dive into basketball performance training. And remember to like and subscribe.
Welcome back. Let's continue our exploration of basketball training
Yeah.
and how to apply those key insights to your own training.
I'm ready to dive back in. In part 1, we unpack some crucial elements: strength training, plyometrics, speed, agility, endurance, and the all-important periodization. Now let's talk about how those elements can come together to create a well-rounded training program.
Absolutely. One of the first things we need to consider is the age and experience level of the athlete. A training program for a young player who's still growing will be vastly different from the program we designed for a seasoned veteran.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want to throw a young player into an intense plyometric routine without making sure they have that foundational strength and proper technique. So what are some key considerations for training those younger players?
Well, safety is paramount, especially when we're talking about athletes who are still developing. Their bodies are more susceptible to injury. That's why it's crucial to start with a solid foundation of bodyweight exercises. Think push-ups, squats, lunges. These exercises build a strong core and improve overall body control, which is essential for any sport. As they get stronger, we can gradually progress to more advanced movements. Start incorporating light weights or resistance bands.
So it's all about building that foundation gradually and not rushing the process. That makes sense. What about plyometrics for younger players? We talk about how important explosiveness is for basketball, but is it safe for kids who are still growing?
Plyometrics can be a great tool for young athletes, but we have to be extremely mindful about proper technique and progression. Starting with low-impact exercises like skipping, hopping, and jumping jacks is a fantastic way to introduce those explosive movements without putting too much stress on those developing joints.
Like building a house, you need that strong foundation before you start adding the fancy features. Now, we've talked about age, but what about training for different positions on the court? A point guard's training would probably look very different from a center's.
Right. You're spot on. While the core principles of strength, power, and agility apply to all players, there are nuances in training depending on the position.
I could see that. Can you give me some examples of how a training program might differ for a guard versus a center?
Let's take a point guard, for instance. They rely heavily on speed, agility, and those incredible ball handling skills. Their training might emphasize drills that enhance quickness, lateral movement, and hand-eye coordination. We might also focus on building upper body strength for those long passes down the court. Think cone drills, ladder drills, and lots of ball handling exercises to develop those lightning-fast reflexes.
That makes sense. They're like the cheetahs of the court, quick and agile. What about centers?
Centers, on the other hand, are the anchors of the team. They need a combination of strength, power, and endurance to battle for rebounds, block shots, and hold their ground in the paint. Their training would likely involve more heavy lifting, plyometrics, and maybe even some boxing drills for footwork and agility.
It sounds like a completely different training focus, tailored to the specific demands of their position. We've talked about physical training, but fueling your body properly is just as important. Let's talk about nutrition. What role does it play in maximizing performance for basketball players?
Nutrition is absolutely crucial. It's the fuel that powers those intense training sessions and games, and it plays a major role in recovery. A balanced diet with plenty of protein, carbohydrates, and healthy fats is essential for building muscle, replenishing energy stores, and supporting overall health.
Are there any specific foods or nutrients that basketball players should be focusing on?
Absolutely. Protein is essential for muscle repair and growth, especially after those tough workouts. So foods like lean meats, poultry, fish, eggs, beans, these are all great choices. Carbohydrates are the primary source of energy, so make sure you're getting enough from whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. And don't forget about healthy fats, like those found in avocados, nuts, and olive oil. They're important for hormone production and overall well-being.
So it's not just about what you eat,
Yeah.
but also when you eat it,
Mm.
especially in relation to your training schedule.
You got it. Consuming protein within an hour after your workout, for example, can really make a difference. In terms of muscle recovery, it helps repair those tiny muscle tears that happen during exercise, making you stronger for the next game.
Wow, I never realized the timing of your meals could have such a significant impact on your recovery.
Huh.
We've been talking a lot about the physical side of things, but what about the mental game? We all know basketball isn't just about physical skill, it's a mental game too. How can players develop that mental toughness and focus?
That's a great question. The mental game is just as important as the physical game, especially in a high-pressure environment, like a basketball game. There are some powerful techniques that players can use to strengthen their mental game. One of my favorites is visualization.
Visualization.
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot of professional athletes use visualization techniques. What exactly does that involve?
It's all about mentally rehearsing game scenarios,
Mhm.
from free throws to those clutch game-winning shots. By practicing these scenarios in their minds, players can build confidence and improve their performance under pressure. It's like creating a mental blueprint for success.
That's incredible. It's like training your mind to stay calm and focused under those intense game situations. What other mental training techniques are out there?
Another one that's incredibly valuable is mindfulness. It involves staying present in the moment, being aware of your thoughts and emotions, and developing strategies for managing stress and anxiety. Some athletes really struggle with pre-game anxiety. These mindfulness techniques can help them learn to control their nerves and stay focused on the task at hand.
It's about not letting those negative thoughts take over, especially during those high-stakes games. Are there any other mental aspects of the game that are essential for success?
Absolutely. Teamwork and communication are vital. Basketball is a team sport, and success hinges on players working together effectively. Building trust, supporting each other, and communicating clearly on the court are essential elements of any winning team. And all of that starts with a positive team culture, where players feel valued, respected, and motivated to succeed.
It's incredible how much goes into creating a successful basketball team.
Yeah.
It's not just about individual skills. It's about fostering that sense of unity and shared purpose.
I couldn't agree more.
This has been such an insightful discussion. We've covered so much ground, from strength training to the power of the mind. But before we move on to part 3, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, individualized training programs. Why are they so important?
That's a great point to bring up. Every athlete is unique, with different strengths, weaknesses, and goals. A cookie-cutter approach to training simply won't work.
So how do you go about creating an individualized training plan? Where do you even begin?
It all starts with a thorough assessment. This might involve evaluating a player's current fitness level, analyzing their movement patterns, looking at their injury history, and even considering their nutritional habits. It's about gathering as much information as possible to create that personalized roadmap for success.
So it's like detective work, piecing together all the clues to create the optimal training plan. What happens once you've gathered all that information?
Then the real fun begins. We take all of those insights and start designing a program that addresses the athlete's specific needs and helps them achieve those goals. It's not just about training hard, it's about training smart.
I love that. Working smarter, not just harder. It's about maximizing those results
Yeah.
and helping every player reach their full potential.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that training is a continuous journey. It's not about reaching a certain level and then stopping. It's about constantly striving for improvement, adapting to new challenges, and pushing those boundaries.
That's such a great message. It's about embracing the journey and finding that joy in the process of becoming a better athlete. We've covered some amazing ground in this part of our deep dive, but don't worry, we're not done yet. In part 3, we'll explore some of those cutting-edge training techniques that are shaping the future of basketball performance. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Sound of a Swish. We're ready for the final buzzer in our deep dive into basketball training. We've broken down the fundamentals, explored individualized training, and now it's time to step into the future. What's on the horizon for basketball performance?
Well, it's an exciting time to be involved in this field. We're seeing a wave of innovation, especially when it comes to technology and recovery strategies. It's like the game is evolving before our very eyes.
Technology is transforming so many aspects of sports these days, from how we train to how we analyze performance. What are some of the most interesting tech advancements you're seeing in basketball training?
Wearable technology is making a huge impact. Think GPS trackers that monitor movement patterns on the court, heart rate monitors that track intensity levels, and even smart insoles that measure jump height, ground contact time, and how force is distributed through the feet.
Wow, I've never even thought about smart insoles before. It sounds like those devices could provide a wealth of data about an athlete's performance. How would a player actually use that data to improve their game?
It's all about using data to inform training decisions. For example, if the data shows a player is consistently landing with more force on one leg, we can address that imbalance through targeted exercises and drills. Or if a player's heart rate data suggests they're not recovering efficiently between sprints, we can adjust their training load. It's about working smarter, not just harder.
That's incredible. It's like having a virtual coach tracking your every move
Yeah.
and providing real-time feedback. What other technologies are changing the game?
Virtual reality training is another game changer. It's still in its early stages, but has incredible potential. VR training allows players to immerse themselves in realistic game simulations. Imagine practicing game-winning shots or defending against a fast break, all within a virtual world.
That's so cool. I could see how VR would be particularly helpful for younger players.
Yeah.
It's like turning training into a video game. It definitely makes it more engaging. Speaking of new frontiers, you mentioned earlier that there are some exciting trends in the realm of recovery. What are some of those cutting-edge strategies?
Recovery is absolutely crucial, especially for athletes who are constantly pushing their limits. We're seeing a growing focus on sleep optimization, hydration strategies, and even things like cryotherapy and compression therapy.
Cryotherapy, that sounds
Yeah.
pretty intense. What exactly is it?
It involves exposing the body to extremely cold temperatures for a short period of time. It might sound futuristic, but it's becoming increasingly popular among athletes. It's thought to reduce inflammation, promote muscle recovery, and alleviate pain.
So it's like hitting the reset button on your body after an intense workout. I can see why athletes would be interested in exploring that, especially if it helps them recover faster and get back in the game. What about compression therapy? What's that all about?
Compression therapy involves wearing specialized garments that apply pressure to specific areas of the body. It's thought to help reduce swelling, improve circulation, and speed up muscle recovery. It's like a gentle massage for your muscles.
It sounds like there's a whole world of recovery techniques I need to catch up on. We've covered training and recovery, but what about the nutrition side of things? I'm curious to learn more about how that's evolving.
We're moving away from those generic dietary recommendations and toward personalized nutrition plans based on genetic testing, blood work, and even analysis of an athlete's gut microbiome.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's about understanding an athlete's individual needs and creating a nutrition plan that truly optimizes their performance.
Exactly. And it's not just about what athletes eat, but also when they eat it. Timing meals and snacks strategically around training can make a huge difference in energy levels, recovery, and muscle growth.
So it's like fine-tuning a machine. You're adjusting all the variables to ensure it's running at peak performance. This has been an amazing journey through the world of basketball training. We've gone from the fundamentals to the cutting-edge technologies and strategies that are shaping the future of the game.
It's been a pleasure sharing my insights.
It's inspiring to see how much emphasis is being placed on the science behind basketball performance. It's no longer just about training hard, it's about taking a holistic approach, considering everything from strength and agility to mental focus, nutrition, and recovery.
You've summed it up perfectly. We're seeing a shift towards a more integrated approach to training, recognizing that all of these factors contribute to an athlete's success.
I have one final question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to aspiring basketball players, what would it be?
I would say this: embrace the journey. Basketball training is a continuous process of learning, growing, and pushing your limits. Celebrate the victories, learn from the setbacks, and never stop striving to reach your full potential, both on and off the court.
That's fantastic advice. It's a reminder that the journey is just as important as the destination. This deep dive into basketball training has been incredible. I've learned so much, and I'm sure our listeners have too. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode of Sound of a Swish.